But Pat, let's get into this, man. We got the Rocket Mortgage Classic. It is the Detroit Golf Club. It's only the second time we've seen this golf course. So tell us what we can expect, key stats, a little bit of strategy, and we'll get into some picks, buddy.
Yeah. So, like you said, we were at Detroit Golf Club this week.
Oh, wait a
Um,
minute. I forgot to tell you my podcast shoots. I'm switching it up on you tonight.
oh wow! Look at you with the
Little
little big old glass of vino. That
big
thing is
old glass of
huge.
vino. This is so I don't have to go back down. So I don't have to go back downstairs.
Yeah, that's a
Hopefully,
good
gets me through the
idea.
whole.
Yeah,
This will. If I add to this for the TJ After Dark show, we're all in big trouble.
yeah. Well, anyway, so this is a par 72 playing just over 7,300 yards. So again, another not so long course as far as tour standard. This week, you got 156 players again. T65 and ties will make the cut. This is a Donald Ross design, and it's pretty classic as far as just the tree lined Donald Ross design, and especially the greens, which are Poa annua this week with a mix of bent. We had this issue
Mm.
last week. We talked about this. You know what though? I think if you listen to the players, they pretty much are. They're saying that it's basically Poa annua greens, and that's what they are. So that's what I'm going to go with this week, unless I hear differently from caddies later in the week, which we will talk about maybe on the Nut Hunt.
Which
Anyway,
we had last week.
yeah, we did. But like I said, it's a classic tree line course that here. You've got the very contoured greens that have a lot of runoffs, but really pretty much from front to back. Four of the par fives here. This is a classic par 72. So four of the par fives, or four par fives this week. Three of them, which are birdie holes that you can reach into. You got several short par fours. So I think you're going to see, like you did last year, a ton of scoring on this course. Now, there's some talk that because the scoring was so low, I mean, the cut line was 5 under, which was the lowest since 2016. So there has been some talk that some of the organizers of the tournament are going to get the rough up a little bit. I don't know if,
Lashley won at 25 under.
yeah, I mean, Lashley was 25 under when he won it. So there's a lot of scoring this week. I'm still going to go off of that for this week. And now we'll see if we hear, that the rough is incredibly penal and whatever else. But I don't think these fairways are that difficult to hit. Penal. That's a funny word.
That is a funny word.
Anyway, I think it's
Kind
all
of
about
like beleaguered.
yeah. I forgot about that. I think it's all about approach this week and hitting these greens from the proper angles. I mean, you got to be below the hole. Nate Lashley mentioned that in talking about the course. He had a lot of looks from below the hole and was able to capitalize on that last year. So I think that's certainly important. So hitting these greens, and then when you do miss them, you got to be able to get up and down. I am going to be looking at the scoring stats. So like opportunities gained on Fantasy National, birdie or better percentage, par four scoring, I think is important this week. So, and then of course, form as always. I may look to see if a player played here last year and they did well, but I'm really not going to factor in history all that much. This is the weakest field we've had since we've been back, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
DeChambeau's our highest priced guy, which, you know what, even if it was a strong field, he might be the highest priced guy this week anyway. But we will see. So there you go. That is the quick course breakdown. I don't think I missed too much. So there you go.
Yeah. I kind of took away a couple things here. You mentioned the undulation, and when you read some of the things that we saw last week, you go back and look over last year at this golf course, and a lot of Donald Ross designs. It's all about being below the hole, and it's about being on the proper tier of these greens, which, like you said, does make approach.
Yep. Were you not paying attention?
I'm reiterating.
You're expanding upon it.
I'm reiterating,
Okay.
which does mean approach is important. Now, unlike last week where I was like all in on the Bombers, right? I am leaning a little more accuracy this week, even though now the course is longer, like 500 yards longer. Now it's a par 72, but I'm leaning a little more accuracy, and here's why. Even if they don't grow the rough up, even if they leave the rough as it was last year, just knowing that for these guys, the best players in the world, to control their distances, to control their spin, and to really get on the right tiers and to make sure they're positioned below the hole to have the best look at birdie, being in the fairway matters. Being in the fairway allows them to control that. So I do think that is something that I'm looking. I actually put, fairways gained which is a Fantasy National stat, or it's similar to driving accuracy, but it's fairways gained relative to the field. I looked at those accurate players. Who's going to not, who's going to leave themselves with a position in a position where they can really control their distances when they get there. Now, of course, from that point, I don't want them to suck with their irons. So I also still want really strong approach play. That's really where I'm weighting a lot of things like fairways gained or driving accuracy, strokes gained approach, greens and reg, the opportunities gained stat, which we talk about a fair amount here on, with Fantasy National. It's proprietary stat to Fantasy National. I like that a lot. And obviously we do feel like this week is going to lean a little more POA, as you mentioned. So I'm looking at that.
Do you find it funny though? Like if you're looking at it right now, like let's just talk about fairways gained or driving accuracy. Like you look at the top from 9, again, the field is a little bit weaker than we've seen. But you start at 9,000 and above, like literally hardly anyone, if you're looking at the last like 24 rounds, is really that great at driving accuracy. Like, I don't know. It's funny to me when you look at it. Like, if all right, so if you were to guess, I'm looking at it. Are you like, if you may not be looking at it, but right now, if you were to guess, like of all the people above 9K, who is the best and most accurate driver? Who would you think?
I would think Kevin Na or Sung Jae, Webb, Hovland. That's where I would guess.
So Sung Jae is 14th in the field. And
you're looking at last 24 rounds?
Yeah, and Na is 30th. And the next closest person is 41st. And that's Victor Hovland, which is just, it's interesting how some of the top players in the world, they don't fit that profile of being accurate drivers, but they do everything else incredibly well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's funny. I'm not bringing that out as any sort of strategy type thing. I think I do agree that there is a reason to look at driving accuracy some this week, but some of these guys that are all in the top players in the world aren't going to necessarily fit that profile, which means you don't necessarily need to come off of them just because, Patrick Reed is showing 108th in driving accuracy.
You still need to find scorers. I mean, we've already talked about like how low the scoring is going to be here, like 20 under, 25 under last year. So you still got to find guys that score. And I don't know, like I feel like a lot of times, like the guys that are maybe in the top of driving accuracy, for whatever reason, they don't really score that well either.
Can't,
Like they just kind of par the hell out of like a Bill Haas, like a Brian Harmon last week, who everyone was on, but I wasn't. There was one that I got right.
That was a good
week.
one. I had 3. By the way, I had 3. I look back. I think it was 3 people that got out of the field because of COVID last week. Now they didn't. Not saying they tested positive, but I was just like, damn.
You had more vacate last week because they didn't test positive than those that did. Although we should go ahead and point out, everybody needs to know Harris English is in Draftkings, but he has tested positive as of today. So if you have Harris English, take him out.
All right.
Other than that, I mean, Nate Lashley. I mean, you can't. We gotta remind people he Monday qualified at this event last year, and snuck in. He was the first player to do that since Vaughn Taylor did it back 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Won at 25 under, just got blazing hot. He won at like 250 to 1. And this is a slightly stronger field than last year, but it's not that strong. So I do think, and we always say this too, in a birdie fest on the PGA Tour, anyone can get hot. On a really difficult golf course, usually the best players in the world rise to the top. But even the best players in the world at a birdie fest can get beat by a Nate Lashley or a Brian Stewart. Like it can happen because everyone that's in this event is a professional golfer and they're good and they can have a week. Anybody can have a week on an easy course. So that is something to keep in mind here.